I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the refresh button as though sheer persistence could change what I was seeing. The account balance glared back at me, $4,753.12. Just yesterday, it had been $157,298.46. The difference, over $150,000, was my entire life savings, now gone. Vanished, along with Lindsay Harper, my best friend of 15 years. This has to be some kind of mistake, I whispered to the empty apartment. But it wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated betrayal. 3 months ago, Lindsay had pitched me her once-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity, a luxury wellness retreat in Arizona. A sanctuary for the soul-starved corporate elite, she'd called it. Lindsay, with her hypnotic energy and bulletproof confidence, had been so convincing. She'd shown me architectural renderings, business projections, even a land deed. I'd transferred the money myself, willingly, trustingly. Now she was gone. Her apartment emptied, her phone disconnected, her social media deactivated. My phone buzzed. A text from Vince, my brother. Any word from Lindsay? I sighed, typing back, nothing. I've been ghosted and robbed. Call the police, Cassie. I told you this was sketchy. I tossed my phone onto the couch. Vince had indeed warned me, as had my cautious nature that I'd chosen to ignore. But Lindsay had been my rock through every life crisis, my parents' messy divorce, my broken engagement, my career pivot. How could anyone fake that kind of friendship? My laptop pinged with an email notification, breaking my spiral of self-recrimination. Probably just another bill I couldn't afford to pay. I reluctantly opened my computer. The email was from Miles Carlisle Travel Photography, with the subject line, New Gallery Update, Maldives Serenity Series. I nearly deleted it until a thumbnail image caught my eye. I clicked to expand it. My breath hitched. There, lounging on a pristine beach beneath a thatched cabana, cocktail in hand, was unmistakably Lindsay. Her signature platinum blonde bob was now a warm caramel brown, but there was no mistaking those green eyes, that distinctive laugh-line dimple. In the photo, she was raising her glass toward the camera, a familiar smirk playing on her lips. My hands began to shake. She hadn't just disappeared, she'd fled to paradise with my money. I scrolled through the gallery, fury building with each image. Lindsay parasailing. Lindsay swimming with manta rays. Lindsay dining at what appeared to be an exclusive underwater restaurant. The final photo stopped me cold. Lindsay stood on a wooden deck overlooking crystal-clear waters, her arm around a tall, dark-haired man. The caption read, Infinity Pool at the St. Regis Vomuli. Suite, $4,000 per night. $4,000 a night. My money. My future. Being squandered on tropical luxury while I'd been eating ramen for a week, desperately trying to figure out how to make rent. I screenshot everything, downloading the entire gallery before it could disappear. Then I allowed myself a moment of pure, clarifying rage. When I had collected myself, I picked up my phone and made 2 calls. The first was to Detective Lauren Rivera at the Financial Crimes Division, who had been sympathetic but not particularly hopeful about my case. The second was to my boss, requesting 2 weeks of emergency personal leave. Everything okay, Cassie? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Family emergency, I replied, which wasn't exactly a lie. Lindsay had been the closest thing to family I'd had in this city. I booked the cheapest flight to the Maldives I could find, not caring that it had 3 layovers. I packed a single carry-on. If Lindsay thought she could simply disappear with my life savings, She was about to learn something about me that 15 years of friendship should have taught her. Cassidy Turner never gives up. I was going to the Maldives. And I was going to get my money back. The journey to the Maldives felt endless. 36 hours of travel, Boston to Dubai to Colombo to Malé, left me disoriented, unwashed, and running on nothing but adrenaline and bitter determination. I had used the last of my available credit to book a modest guest house on one of the local islands, saving what little cash I had left for transportation to the St. Regis, where I hoped Lindsay was still staying. As the small boat approached my island accommodation, I couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between the luxury resorts dotting the horizon and the practical simplicity of my destination. Each of those exclusive water bungalows probably cost more per night than I had left in my bank account. The thought of Lindsay luxuriating in one of them while I scraped by made me grind my teeth. My host, a friendly local man named Ibrahim, greeted me at the jetty. "Ms. Turner, welcome. Your first time in Maldives, yes?" I managed a tired smile. "Yes. Though I wish it were under different circumstances." "Ah, you are here for work?" He grabbed my small suitcase before I could protest. "Something like that," I replied vaguely. "Actually, I need to get to the St. Regis Vomuli. Do you know how far that is from here?" Ibrahim's eyebrows shot up. "Very exclusive, very expensive. Special occasion?" "I'm meeting someone," I said, trying to sound casual. "Is it difficult to get there?" "Not difficult, but costly. Seaplane or speedboat only." "I can arrange, but..." He named a price that made my stomach clench. "I'll find a way," I said, with more confidence than I felt. "First, I need sleep." My room was simple but clean, with a ceiling fan that offered marginal relief from the tropical heat. I showered off the travel grime, changed into a fresh t-shirt and shorts, and collapsed onto the bed, setting an alarm for 3 hours. I couldn't afford to waste time, even for rest. When I woke, the sun was setting, casting the small room in an orange glow. I pulled out my laptop, opening the folder of screenshots I'd taken from the photographer's website. I clicked through them methodically, looking for any clue that might help me find Lindsay once I reached the resort. In one image, Lindsay was clearly dining with the dark-haired man from the infinity pool photo. They were leaning close, intimate. A new boyfriend? A co-conspirator? I zoomed in on his wrist, an expensive watch glinted in the candlelight. Whoever he was, he had money. I opened my email, composing a message to Miles Carlyle, the photographer. "Dear Mr. Carlyle," I wrote. "I recently viewed your Maldives gallery and recognized an old friend. I've lost touch with her and would love to reconnect while I'm in the area. The woman with caramel hair in your St. Regis photos, could you tell me if she's still there? I'd like to surprise her." It was a long shot, but worth trying. I hit send, then pulled up the St. Regis website. Even their cheapest room was obscenely expensive. There was no way I could afford to stay there, but perhaps I could find a way to access the property. Many luxury resorts offered day passes for visitors wanting to dine at their restaurants or use their facilities. I booked a day pass for 2 days from now, wincing at the cost but knowing it was my best chance to find Lindsay. If she was still there, I needed to confront her face to face, somewhere she couldn't easily escape. I fell into an uneasy sleep, dreaming of Lindsay laughing as she swam through crystal waters, my savings transformed into sparkling fish that slipped through my fingers when I tried to catch them. The photographer replied early the next morning. "Hi Cassidy. I can't give you specific guest information, but I can tell you I was shooting at the St. Regis for 3 days last week as part of their promotional campaign. Most guests I photographed were staying in the overwater villas. Hope that helps with your surprise. Best. Miles. It wasn't much, but it confirmed that Lindsay had been there recently. Whether she was still there remained to be seen. I spent the day gathering intel, researching the resort's layout, and trying to devise a strategy. By evening, I'd formulated something resembling a plan. I would use my day pass to access the resort, then methodically check every restaurant, pool, and public area. If necessary, I'd fabricate a story about delivering an important package to get information from the staff. The next morning, I took the costly speedboat to the St. Regis. As we approached, the resort's elegance was breathtaking, overwater villas extending like a necklace into the turquoise lagoon, pristine beaches, and lush tropical gardens. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated its beauty. Instead, all I saw was the obscene display of wealth purchased with my stolen future. At reception, a gracious staff member checked my day pass and explained the facilities available to me. I nodded politely, all while scanning the open-air lobby for any sign of Lindsay. "Are there any special events happening today?" I asked casually. "I'm hoping to make the most of my visit." The receptionist smiled. "Yes, we have a sunset yoga session at the main pool at 5:30, and our underwater restaurant is hosting a special wine tasting this evening, though I'm afraid that's fully booked." I thanked her and began my systematic search of the property, starting with the restaurants serving breakfast. I ordered a coffee I couldn't afford at the beachfront cafe, positioning myself with a view of every table. No Lindsay. By midday, I'd checked 3 restaurants, 2 pools, and the spa without success. The resort was larger than I'd anticipated, and my day pass would expire before I could thoroughly search every area. Frustration mounted as I realized the flaw in my plan. Lindsay could easily be in her villa, ordering room service, completely unaware that I was here hunting for her. I was sitting at the infinity pool bar, nursing an overpriced sparkling water, when I overheard a conversation between 2 servers. The couple in Overwater Villa 302 requested a romantic dinner setup again tonight, one said. "Third night in a row." "The American woman with the new hair color," replied the other. "She tips very well. Always cash, always hundreds." My heart lurched. New hair color. American. Extravagant tipper. It had to be Lindsay. I abandoned my drink and made my way to a quiet corner of the resort, pulling up the property map on my phone. The overwater villas were arranged in a semicircle extending from the island. Villa 302 would be halfway down the eastern pontoon walkway. There was no way to access it without being obvious. The walkways were exposed, with no cover. I'd have to wait until evening, when Lindsay might venture out for dinner. I positioned myself on a lounge chair with a view of the main walkway leading from the overwater villas to the island, ordered another drink I couldn't afford, and settled in to wait. The sun was beginning its descent when I finally saw her. Lindsay emerged from the direction of the villas, wearing a flowing white dress, her newly caramel hair loose around her shoulders. She looked tanned, relaxed, carefree, the antithesis of how I'd felt for the past week. Beside her walked the dark-haired man from the photos, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. They were heading toward the main restaurant. This was my chance. I abandoned my post and walked quickly but calmly toward them, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. They were about to enter the restaurant when I called out. "Lindsay!" She turned, confusion flitting across her face before recognition hit. Her eyes widened in shock, her mouth forming a perfect O of surprise. For a split second, she froze, then she grabbed her companion's arm and tried to push past me into the restaurant. I blocked their path. 15 years of friendship, and you can't even say hello? The dark-haired man looked between us, confusion evident. Melissa, who is this? Melissa. Of course she'd changed her name. No one, Lindsay replied quickly. Just someone who must have mistaken me for someone else. I laughed humorlessly. Mistaken you? No, Lindsay Harper, I'd recognize you anywhere, even with your new hair and your new name. And your new lifestyle, apparently. Enjoying my $150,000? The man's hand dropped from Lindsay's back. What is she talking about? Lindsay's face transformed, her shock replaced by a practiced calm. She's confused. Please, let's just go inside. I'm not confused, I said firmly, pulling out my phone and opening the bank transfer receipt. 3 months ago, you convinced me to invest my entire savings in your wellness retreat. Then you disappeared. With my money. The man was staring at Lindsay now, his confusion turning to suspicion. Security, Lindsay called out, her voice steady. This woman is harassing me. A resort security guard appeared almost instantly. Is there a problem here? Lindsay adopted a frightened expression. This woman is stalking me. I've never seen her before. That's a lie. I protested, turning to the security guard. She stole money from me. She's a con artist. The guard looked skeptical. Ma'am, if you have a complaint, you should take it to the proper authorities. I insisted. But I needed to confront her myself. The dark-haired man stepped forward. I think we should all calm down. Perhaps we can discuss this privately. Lindsay shot him a look of betrayal. Ethan, there's nothing to discuss. She's clearly unstable. Then you won't mind proving you're not Lindsay Harper, I challenged, sensing an unexpected ally in Ethan. Show your passport. Prove who you really are. A small crowd had gathered, drawn by the commotion. Lindsay's eyes darted around, calculating. I could almost see her running scenarios in her mind, weighing options. Fine, she said finally. Let's talk privately. But not here. The security guard looked to Ethan, who nodded. The library is empty at this hour. We can speak there. As we walked, Lindsay maintained her distance from me, whispering frantically to Ethan. His posture had stiffened, his earlier affection replaced by guarded suspicion. The library was a quiet, wood-paneled room with leather chairs and ocean views. As soon as the door closed behind us, Lindsay dropped all pretense. What the hell are you doing here, Cassie? She hissed. Getting my money back, I replied simply. Did you really think I wouldn't find you? Ethan cleared his throat. Would someone please explain what's going on? Lindsay opened her mouth, but I spoke first. Your girlfriend here is really Lindsay Harper from Boston. 3 months ago, she convinced me to invest in a fake wellness resort, then disappeared with my money, $150,000 to be exact. My entire life savings. Ethan turned to Lindsay. Is this true? It's complicated, she hedged. It's really not, I countered. It's fraud. It's theft. It's betrayal of the worst kind. Lindsay's facade cracked slightly. You don't understand. I was desperate. Desperate? I echoed incredulously. Desperate enough to destroy a 15-year friendship? To steal from someone who would have done anything to help you if you'd just asked? Ethan sank into one of the leather chairs, running a hand through his hair. Melissa, or Lindsay, I guess, we've been dating for 2 months. You told me you were independently wealthy from your family's real estate business. Lindsay's eyes flashed with panic. I can explain everything, Ethan. Just give me a chance. I'd love to hear this explanation too, I said coldly. Lindsay glared at me, then sighed in defeat. I was in trouble. Serious trouble. I owed money to people you don't want to owe money to. So you decided to steal from me instead? I asked. I was going to pay you back, she insisted. Once I got back on my feet. With what? I gestured around at the luxury resort. While you're living like this? Ethan stood abruptly. I think I should call hotel security back. And the police. Lindsay's eyes widened in genuine fear. No. Please, Ethan. You don't understand. These people I owe, they're dangerous. What people? I demanded. It doesn't matter, she snapped. What matters is that I needed to disappear. And yes, I took your money. And yes, I've been spending it. But I was desperate, Cassie. They threatened my life. I wanted to believe her. Some small, foolish part of me wanted there to be a justification, a reason that would make sense of this betrayal. But the evidence of her deception was all around us, the luxury resort, the fancy clothes, the lavish lifestyle. If you were really in danger, I said quietly, you would have gone into hiding. Not been flaunting yourself at one of the most exclusive resorts in the world, posting photos all over the internet. Lindsay flinched. The photos weren't my idea. That photographer was doing promotional work. I didn't think. That's your problem, Lindsay, I interrupted. You never think about anyone but yourself. Ethan was staring at his watch, an expensive timepiece that had caught my attention in the photographs. I think I've heard enough. I'm going to my room to pack. And then I'm checking out. Lindsay's face crumpled. Ethan, please. Save it, he said coldly. I don't date thieves. He turned to me. I'm sorry for what she did to you. If you need me to make a statement to the authorities, I will. With that, he walked out, leaving Lindsay and me alone in the library. For a long moment, we stared at each other, me, travel-worn and furious, her, glamorous and cornered. What now? She finally asked, her voice small. Now you give me back my money, I said firmly. She laughed bitterly. I can't. Most of it's gone. Gone where? I demanded. This place is expensive, but not $150,000 in a week expensive. Lindsay sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. I had debts, Cassie. Big ones. Gambling debts. Something clicked in my mind. The times she'd disappeared for days. The calls she'd taken private. The way she'd alternated between flush with cash and desperately broke. How long? I asked. Years, she admitted. It started small. A poker game here, a sports bet there. Then it got out of control. I wanted to feel sympathy. I wanted to remember the Lindsay who had held me through breakups, who had danced with me at wedding receptions, who had helped me move apartments 3 times without complaint. But all I could see was the calculated way she had targeted me and my savings. So how much is left? I asked. She hesitated. Maybe 30,000. I don't know exactly. Less than a quarter of what I'd given her. The reality of it hit me like a physical blow. Even if I got back what remained, I'd still lost most of my security, most of my future. I want every penny that's left, I said, my voice hardening. And then I'm going to the police. Both here and in Boston. Lindsay's head snapped up. You can't. Cassie, please. These people I owe, they're not the kind you involve police with. That's not my problem, I replied coldly. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. They'll kill me, she exclaimed, her voice breaking. I'm not exaggerating, Cassie. Why do you think I ran? Why do you think I changed my appearance, my name? I studied her face, trying to determine if this was just another manipulation. If that's true, then tell me everything. The whole truth. Right now. She hesitated, then nodded, resignation settling over her features. I got in over my head with an underground poker game run by some very dangerous people. I owed them over 100,000. They were threatening to break my kneecaps, or worse. So you decided to steal from me instead of asking for help? I asked incredulously. Would you have given me $100,000 to pay off an illegal gambling debt? She countered. She was right, I wouldn't have. But that didn't justify theft. Then what's all this? I gestured around at the luxury resort. If you were running from dangerous people, why are you living it up at the St. Regis? Lindsay had the decency to look ashamed. I paid off my debt. But I was afraid they'd come after me for more. So I ran. And yes, I've been spending some of your money on this. Because I thought, after all the fear and stress, I deserved some happiness. The audacity of it struck me speechless. You deserved? I finally managed. What about what I deserved, Lindsay? After 15 years of friendship? After all the times I was there for you? She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I know. It was selfish. But I didn't know what else to do. You could have talked to me, I said, my voice breaking. You could have been honest. Lindsay shook her head. You don't understand the kind of people I was dealing with. They don't just take no for an answer. So you sacrificed me instead, I said bitterly. Threw me to the wolves to save yourself. She didn't deny it, which somehow hurt more than if she'd tried to justify it. I took a deep breath, trying to think clearly through my anger and exhaustion. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer every penny you have left to my account. Right now. Then you're going to confess, in writing, to what you did. And then I never want to see you again. Lindsay looked up, surprise evident on her face. You're not going to the police? I considered it. I should go to the police. I should make sure she faced legal consequences for what she'd done. But the reality was, even with a confession, international legal proceedings would be complex, expensive, and time-consuming. And if she really was in danger from loan sharks, reporting her might put her at risk. Despite everything, some small part of me still cared what happened to her. 15 years of friendship didn't disappear overnight, even after a betrayal of this magnitude. I said finally. But I won't. Not if you give me everything that's left and stay out of my life forever. Relief flooded her face. Thank you, Cassie. Don't, I cut her off. Don't thank me. Just do what I asked. She nodded, pulling out her phone. We sat in tense silence as she made the transfer, then drafted a confession on the hotel stationery. When she finished, she slid the paper across to me. Is that enough? She asked quietly. I read it, making sure it detailed the full extent of her fraud, then folded it and put it in my pocket. It'll do. My phone chimed with a transfer notification. I checked the amount, $32,147.89. Just as she'd said, only a fraction of what she'd taken. "What will you do now?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. Lindsay shrugged, looking suddenly lost. "I don't know. Start over somewhere, I guess." Again. Part of me wanted to tell her to get help for her gambling addiction. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to make her understand the depth of her betrayal. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the lies, tired of the drama, tired of caring about someone who had so clearly never truly cared about me. "Goodbye, Lindsay," I said, standing to leave. She looked up at me, her eyes filling with tears. "I really am sorry, Cassie." "I know," I replied. "But sometimes sorry isn't enough." I walked out of the library without looking back, the weight of 15 years of friendship finally lifting from my shoulders. The journey back to my modest guest house felt surreal. I had come to the Maldives burning with righteous fury, determined to confront Lindsay and reclaim what was mine. I had succeeded, at least partially. But victory felt hollow. Ibrahim greeted me as I stepped off the boat, his cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to my emotional exhaustion. "How was St. Regis?" "Very beautiful, yes?" "Beautiful," I agreed absently. "But I'm ready to go home now." His smile faltered slightly. "So soon? You have paid for 3 more nights." I shrugged. I found what I came for. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. After all the adrenaline and anger that had propelled me across the world, I felt strangely empty. I checked my bank account, the transfer from Lindsay had gone through. It wasn't everything, but it was something. A start. I called Detective Rivera to update her on the situation. "You confronted her yourself?" she asked, disbelief evident in her voice. "In the Maldives?" "Yes," I confirmed. "I got back about 30,000. And a written confession." "Ms. Turner, while I admire your initiative, that was incredibly risky. She could have been dangerous." I thought about Lindsay's tear-stained face in the library. She wasn't dangerous. Just desperate. And selfish. "Will you be pressing charges?" Detective Rivera asked. I hesitated. "I don't think so. I don't have the energy for an international legal battle." And I got back some of what she took. "That's your decision," she said, though I could hear the disapproval in her voice. "But if you change your mind, the confession will help your case." After we hung up, I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan rotating lazily above me. The reality of my financial situation was still dire. I'd recovered less than a quarter of my savings, and spent a good chunk of what I had left getting to the Maldives. But at least now I had closure. I knew the truth. I knew where I stood. My phone buzzed with a text from Vince. "Vince, any updates?" I typed back, "Found her. Got back $32,000. Coming home soon." His reply was immediate, "Holy shit. You actually found her?" I smiled faintly. My cautious, play-by-the-rules brother would never understand what had driven me to fly halfway around the world on the slim chance of confronting Lindsay. But he didn't need to understand. I had done what I needed to do. I spent the next 3 days exploring the local island, swimming in the crystal-clear waters, and attempting to process everything that had happened. The beauty of the Maldives provided a surreal backdrop to my grief. Because that's what it was, I realized, grief for a friendship that had never been what I thought it was. On my final night, Ibrahim invited me to join his family for dinner. They lived in a modest home near the guest house, and the simple meal of grilled fish and coconut rice was the best thing I'd eaten in days. You come to Maldives with sadness in your eyes, Ibrahim's wife, Fariha, observed as we sat drinking tea after the meal. You leave with. She searched for the word, peace, maybe? I considered this. I think so. I came looking for someone who betrayed me. I found her. And now it's over. Ibrahim nodded sagely. Sometimes the journey is more important than the destination, yes? Yes, I agreed, though I wasn't sure if that was true in my case. The journey had been exhausting, expensive, and emotionally draining. But it had also been necessary. As I packed to leave the next morning, I found myself lingering over a small shell I'd picked up on the beach, a perfect spiral, pale pink against the white of my palm. I tucked it into my bag, a tangible reminder of this strange chapter of my life. The return journey was as long and grueling as the outbound one, made even more challenging by my turbulent emotions. I oscillated between anger at Lindsay's betrayal, relief at having confronted her, and anxiety about my financial future. By the time I landed in Boston, I was physically and emotionally spent. Vince was waiting for me at the airport, his familiar, worried face a welcome sight. "You look terrible," he said by way of greeting, pulling me into a tight hug. "Thanks," I replied dryly. "It's been a rough week." In the car, he peppered me with questions about the confrontation, about Lindsay, about the Maldives. I answered mechanically, too tired to delve into the emotional complexities. "I still can't believe you actually found her," he said, shaking his head as we pulled up to my apartment building. "That's some serious detective work, Cass." I shrugged. Sometimes people are easier to find than they think. Inside my apartment, everything looked exactly as I'd left it, coffee cup still in the sink, mail piled on the counter, bed unmade. Yet it all felt different somehow. Or maybe I was the one who had changed. Vince insisted on staying, ordering takeout that he paid for despite my protests. "So what now?" he asked as we ate. "Now I rebuild," I said simply. "I go back to work. I start saving again. I move on." He studied me carefully. "And Lindsay? Are you really not going to press charges?" I sighed, setting down my chopsticks. What would be the point? International legal proceedings would cost more than I'd likely recover. And honestly, I'm just done. With all of it. With her. Vince nodded slowly. "I get it. But I hope she doesn't do this to anyone else." "I have her confession," I reminded him. "If I ever hear she's pulling something similar, I'll use it." After Vince left, I sat on my couch in the quiet of my apartment, feeling strangely calm. The anger that had propelled me across the world had faded, leaving in its wake a clearer understanding of both Lindsay and myself. She had never been the person I thought she was. And I had been too willing to trust, too desperate to hold on to a friendship that had long since evolved into something unbalanced and unhealthy. My phone buzzed with an email notification. Curious, I opened it. It was from Lindsay, sent from a new email address. "Cassie. I know you never want to hear from me again, and I respect that. But before I disappear for good, I needed to say something more than that pathetic apology in the hotel. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, and no excuse, not gambling addiction, not fear, not desperation, can justify it. For what it's worth, which isn't much, I know, I was telling the truth about the danger I was in. Those people don't mess around. But that doesn't make what I did to you any less wrong. You were the best friend I ever had, and I threw that away for money and a temporary escape from my problems. I will regret that for the rest of my life." I've checked myself into a gambling addiction treatment program. Not because I expect it to make things right between us, nothing could do that, but because I need to fix what's broken in me before I destroy anything else in my life. I've attached a document with login information for a separate account where I'll be depositing monthly payments to you. It won't happen quickly, but eventually, I'll pay back every penny I took. You have my confession if I don't follow through. I won't contact you again. But I wanted you to know that even though I betrayed our friendship in the worst way possible, it was real for me too. I just wasn't worthy of it. Goodbye, Cassie. I hope someday you find a friend who deserves you. Lindsay. I stared at the email for a long time, unsure how to feel. Part of me wanted to delete it, to sever this final connection without acknowledging it. Part of me wanted to respond with all the hurt and anger that still simmered beneath the surface. In the end, I did neither. I saved the account information, closed the email, and set my phone aside. Whether Lindsay would follow through on her promise to repay me remained to be seen. Whether she would actually get help for her gambling addiction was equally uncertain. But those were her choices to make, her path to walk. My own path was clearer now. I would rebuild my savings, more carefully this time. I would be more discerning about who I trusted, without becoming bitter or closed off. I would learn from this experience without letting it define me. The next morning, I returned to work, fielding curious questions about my family emergency with vague responses. I dove back into my projects, grateful for the distraction and the normalcy. In the weeks that followed, small deposits appeared in the account Lindsay had set up, $500 here, $700 there. Not life-changing amounts, but evidence, perhaps, that her remorse was genuine. I never responded to her email. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. But as spring turned to summer, I found myself thinking of her less often, the sharp sting of betrayal gradually dulling to an occasional ache. One evening, as I was cleaning my apartment, I came across the small shell I'd brought back from the Maldives. I held it up to the light, admiring the perfect spiral, the delicate pink hue. Then I placed it on my bookshelf, a reminder not of Lindsay's betrayal, but of my own resilience. The money was gone, most of it, anyway. The friendship was over. But I had survived. I had found the strength to cross oceans in pursuit of the truth, to confront betrayal head-on, to rebuild in the aftermath of devastation. And that, I realized, was worth more than any amount of money. The knowledge that I wouldn't let myself be a victim, that I could stand up and fight back when necessary. 6 months after returning from the Maldives, I checked the recovery account. The balance had grown to almost $50,000, still far from the full amount, but more than I had expected to see. Lindsay was keeping her word, one payment at a time. I received a small envelope that same week, postmarked from Arizona. Inside was a 6-month sobriety chip from Gamblers Anonymous and a short note, one day at a time. Still keeping my promise. I held the chip in my palm, feeling its weight. There was no signature, no return address, nothing to respond to even if I had wanted to. Just this small token of a journey parallel to my own, her path to recovery, my path to rebuilding. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the Boston skyline glitter against the darkening sky. The betrayal would always be part of my story, a chapter one couldn't erase. But it wasn't the whole story. The truth was, Lindsay's theft had forced me to recognize my own strength. It had taught me that I could lose almost everything and still find my way back. That I could cross oceans, confront my fears, and emerge intact on the other side. I ran my fingers over the small shell on my windowsill, its spiral pattern a reminder of how life continuously circles back on itself, bringing challenges and lessons in equal measure. Some debts can never be fully repaid. Some friendships, once broken, remain irreparable. But within that loss, I had discovered something valuable, a resilience I never knew I possessed. As the last light faded from the sky, I made a silent promise to myself: I would never again put my future in someone else's hands. But neither would I let this betrayal harden my heart against trust entirely. Balance, like the perfect spiral of a seashell, was the key. And finally, I was finding mine.